Peace, world. Thanks for pressing play on another Pay Me No Mind sports and entertainment video. My name is Wood. Gonna jump right into some Bite Down Boxing. Check me out at www.bitedownboxing.com. I wasn't even gonna do a live stream this morning on the way in, but it's better than listening to sports radio, I guess. But and I did. There was a little bit of news, actually, a couple of interesting things. I didn't realize that boxing was suspended in the UK right now through January. All boxing is suspended at the moment in the UK. So based on that's due to COVID-19, data trending in the wrong direction and whatnot. So that's interesting. Because one thing that's definitely being affected is any kind of movement with the Joshua and Fury fight, in terms of exploring whether or not that can be held in the UK, or if they got to go, abroad with it. Not too abroad, but abroad with it. Barring whatever comes out of the Wilder litigation stuff with the mediation, which I've heard some stuff has happened, but I don't have any details. There was one other thing, and it's also with the zone trying to be more shifting towards a more global approach in its boxing. That's a hotbed for them, and right now they can't put any fights together and whatnot. So that hurts their their scheduling, what they would hope to do. I also heard, and you probably heard, that Showtime has a schedule to release. We just don't know when it's going to be released. I believe Espinosa was on the PBC podcast a couple of weeks ago. And then, Fox has its schedule to come out. ESPN and Top Rank need to get theirs, fully put together. So, we don't have any major boxing this weekend, which is a good thing. And, for those of us that follow it week to week, man, it's good to have some breaks here and there and go do some other stuff. I'm trying to think if there was one other thing before I get into this Mauricio Sulaimán situation. Well, they kind of go hand in hand, but the first thing is that Mauricio Sulaimán was on the Akin Barak show yesterday. I want to say it was yesterday, Tuesday, the 5th. And he did this State of the Union visit that he does with Akin Barak. One thing, shout out to Akin Barak, especially for Barak Best, for calling Sulaimán out after he confirmed, this is the head of the WBC, he confirmed on the show that that Teofimo Lopez should be recognized, and that he recognizes Teofimo Lopez as the undisputed champion of at lightweight. And that's it confuses things. It makes a mess of the division, because they elected to give, they elevated Vasily Lomachenko, who Teofimo Lopez beat at the head. They had before their fight, they elevated him to franchise champion, which nobody kind of understands what the hell that is. But Sulaimán maintains that it was a move and a designation made to get fans the best fights, in theory. But Teofimo beats Vasily, and now he has this franchise title of the WBC. Prior to that, they had already elevated Devin Haney from an interim interim, 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 champion to the full world champion. So you have Devin Haney with the world title version, the world championship version, and after Teofimo Lopez's win, you have him as the franchise champion. And then this past weekend, Ryan Garcia stops Luke Campbell and becomes the interim champion, which makes him the mandatory opponent of Devin Haney. The franchise version does not have mandatory opponents. They're not given mandatory opponents. Like I said, shout out to Barack Best, because he pushed back after Sulaimán confirmed this, and he said, well, that's disrespect. Devin Haney has to feel disrespected with you saying this and with this determination of the ranking and whatnot, the ranking of the champions. And he basically, when he tried, it was a video last year where he tried to explain the whole reasoning behind the franchise belt. It didn't make sense then. He couldn't explain it then. And he really had no explanation yesterday. He just said, I'm just trying to make the best fights possible, and we're trying to facilitate, basically the best fights happening for the fans. And mind you, how we got here, the WBC had tried to do like a 4-man tournament to get to the WBC lightweight champion, and Top Rank and Bob Arum pulled Teofimo Lopez out of that and sent him to go out, and face Richard Comey for the IBF title as part of their building to the Lomachenko-Lopez fight. So Haney and Haney and Lopez could have already fought if that 4-man tournament would have went forward. So like I said, he has no explanation of this other than I'm just trying to make the best fights. He's like, we've talked to Devin Haney, we love Devin Haney, we stay in contact with him, and he basically just left it at the end of the day, hopefully with things as the way they are, it's up to the promoters, to put the fights together and settle it. And honestly, I mean, that's really all the power that the WBC has anyway. Is to do what they do, and then the promoters are going to do what they do. Like Eddie Hearn said, when it gets down to it, the only rule that matters for all of these sanctioning bodies is that at any given point in time, they can do what's best for either the sanctioning body itself or what's best for the bottom line with allowing Fight X to go forward. They should always be able to make the best decision, with that regard. And that's pretty much the truth of it. The only thing, though, while we're waiting on, while this is very unfortunate for Devin Haney, two things. It's not a bad deal for Devin Haney because his guarantee went up. Whatever situation, whatever arrangement he has with Matchroom Boxing and Eddie Hearn, Devin Haney went to getting paid like a world champion. So, again, in me being pro fighter, I can't get too mad at Devin Haney for taking the belt, for accepting the belt. I'm sure that's a $250,000, somewhere around there. I'm sure it's that type of bump in his pay, in his guarantee. So I can't get too mad at that. The second thing is, if we're looking at this, Ryan Garcia, however we regard him, however lowly or highly we regard him, he now has the second best win in the division as the interim champion. Indisputably, he has the second best win behind Teofimo Lopez, who beat Vasily Lomachenko, who was a 3-belt champion when they fought. And by all of the people who Luke Campbell fought at lightweight in Linares and Vasily Lomachenko, with Ryan Garcia beating him, he has the second best win out of all of these guys that we care about. Gervonta Davis really doesn't have a legitimate win at lightweight, and we don't even know what division he's even campaigning at for the time being. He has the full world version of the WBA 130-pound belt, but Devin Haney has fought nobody of note. I mean, I can't even remember my man's name, but he was a top 10 in the WBC ranking and whatnot, but none of us had really heard of him. But so that's one feather in Ryan's cap, is that he has the second best win. First and foremost, the biggest feather in Ryan Garcia's cap or hat is the fact that he has this social media following that that means something, whether we like it or not. And you can make all the jokes about it that we want. His following means something, because he can sit here and say that he's a draw, even just based on the fact that he was able to sell 6,000 tickets that were made available for the fight last Saturday. He's a draw. And I saw a commenter that made a hell of a statement because of how things are set up right now. But he said you don't see Ryan Garcia attending Devin Haney fights to call him out. Now Haney couldn't get. Haney, there was no fans in the building when he fought Gamboa. You know, it was in a bubble. So he didn't have a chance to have anybody ringside or in the building for his fight, his title defense against Gamboa. But like I said, Devin Haney is just in an unfortunate situation based on all of the circumstances outside of him that he can't control, but he's just standing here with this title. Now, the WBC has ordered, or is rumored or reportedly will be ordering Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia, and it'll be interesting. And like I said, that is, with him winning that interim title, he is the mandatory to face Devin Haney, but he could potentially go and make a bigger fight just based on what he's been built to be and what he's become. It's feasible that he could go and face Gervonta Davis, like I said, who doesn't have a world title, but it's a big fight because Gervonta Davis has already put in work and has established what he's established and has his following. And then here's Ryan Garcia, who, whether we like I said, whether you regard him lowly or highly, the game is determined to make him out to be something. And so he brings something to the table, and he really can, he can go around facing Devin Haney and go make, and it's a legitimate fight. In a lot of circles, it might be the bigger fight between the two. It really may be, just based on the following of the two and the draw that they are individually. It's a bigger fight. And typically in boxing, there's threats of it that the fighter is bigger than the belts, or any particular fighter is bigger than the belts or the titles. But this is one situation where it might be. Another situation that's kind of like that is if we were to see a super lightweight fight, 140 pounds, between Regis Prograis and Adrian Broner. Same situation. Jose Carlos Ramirez, I always get his name mixed up, but Ramirez has the 140 WBC and WBO belts. Josh Taylor has the IBF and the WBA versions of the 140-pound belt. We're all waiting on when that Undisputed fight could get made by Top Rank. But if Prograis and Adrian Broner announced if they announced that fight, that's probably the best fight in the division. To some. So that's where we are with it. You know, Ryan Garcia has some options, and Devin Haney, and that's what I'm saying. Like I said, even in the interim, when these fights that we really want to see can't get made, like what's the plan B? What's the contingency plan that the promoter is putting together that's gonna work? Now, Haney, I believe at one point in time was supposed to face Fortuna, I believe, when he was coming off of his injury, or at some point in time, I think he was supposed to face Fortuna, which would have been a legitimate, I think Fortuna's held a world title previously. He at least has one of the lower level versions or whatever. And we've seen Fortuna several times. Hasn't always been a good look for him, but we've seen him, you know, we're familiar with him. So, like I said, if Haney is locked out, you know, on the outside looking in, you know, what can they get done for him? What opponent can they get for him? And another thing, I see some of the channels crying about and bitching about and complaining about, you know, how can you sit here and yell about, and this is the thing, because I see people popping in and popping off. I'm not talking, you know, the most, I'm not talking the most popular boxing and the most scandalous and the most controversial boxing, so people don't have time to hear it. But, you know, I sit and ask questions like, we want to see the fights, but people sit and bitch and complain and yell, but make no mention of how does the Zone and ESP and Top Rank / ESPN work together. Top Rank sent Jose Carlos Ramirez over to the Zone to face Maurice Hooker for the unification fight. That worked for Ramirez. So with that being setting a precedent of them working together, why can't this fight be explored? The other interesting thing that some of these channels with the loudest channels and the whiningest complaining channels, George Kambosos is a mandatory for Teofimo Lopez. That's an interesting fight because Top Rank does do some international business and could send him over to Australia or down under to face Kambosos Jr. And then you get a country involved as in terms of the market, you know, and the potential audience and whatnot. So it's a lot of valid reasons why some of these fights just don't happen when we want them to happen. We do expect these promoters and the networks and whatnot to have solutions or to have, you know, acceptable plan Bs if they can't go to plan A. But there are some valid reasons that hold some of this stuff up. And just because you yell louder, you know, doesn't mean that, and just because you use a lot of strong language doesn't mean that these are invalid or insignificant, you know, stumbling blocks, you know, and impediments to making a fight. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. So that's just very interesting, man. You know, this franchise tag is a mess. Like I said, he couldn't explain it when they put it out there. He can't explain it now. Because even now, if you say, well, we just want the best to fight the best, again, the franchise champion doesn't have any mandatory responsibilities. So with you having Haney and Lopez here as the top two champions, there's nothing there. You're not going to strip Lopez of the franchise. So that's not a threat. So you just created this, you threw the match in this dumpster and set it on fire and just walked away. And, you know, They'll figure it out. Somebody will figure it out. And it's obvious here, you know, that for whatever reason or another, like I said, there's precedent between Eddie Hearn and Bob Arum working together. And for some reason, there's no interest whatsoever in Haney and, you know, and Teofimo Lopez at this point in time. And let's back up, you know, all of these big fights, you know, last year during the COVID situation and the coronavirus pandemic, you know, a lot of these fights were, bridge fights, you know, a lot of these fights where we're just getting this fight in right now in these conditions. Maybe we eat a little bit of this money to eat a little bit of the cost to make this happen. We understand it's not the fight you want, but we're holding this fight because it's the best that we can do right now. And we're just trying to keep the sport alive. We're trying to get a guy some work. And, you know, we're waiting to see when things turn around before we can sit down again and go back to do, you know, the business as normal, so to speak. So that's another thing out there, you know. It's not a good sign. Like I said, if Britain or Great Britain is shutting down and banning boxing altogether, well, that really doesn't help. You know, that doesn't help better fights to get made. With only us right now having Texas and Florida as the only places that were having audiences and may start to pull back from that themselves. Again, these aren't moving things in a popular or in a promising direction. So so that's that. There's one other thing I was tempted to get on to, but I'm gonna shut it down at that. Again, man, like I said, I know facts, and these types of details aren't the sexy things. You know, not everybody wants to hear detail and fact and reasoning, but you know, I'm just talking my talk. Bite down boxing. Don't ever let them count you out. Pay me no mind. Sports and entertainment. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Peace.